which is I potato one, which means that we are going to start. Listen, so I wasn't. First of all, maybe before we start, the fact is that our people are going through a really heavy trauma. 50 years to the day after the Yom Kippur War, and we find ourselves almost in yet another, I don't want to say parallel is not, but yet another case of our intelligence failing us and not being prepared for a horrific event. I mean, what happened yesterday, I don't want to start kind of making comparisons or putting numbers or anything. What I can say is that it is deeply etched into our very cores and souls. That one thing I've seen numerous reports, accounts, and videos of hostage taking and kidnapping. I mean, and it's so painful. And I, by the way, was literally last night. My daughter was we have a plane ticket, which I was on the phone, or not on the phone with law as a turned out. She was flying last night to Israel. She's here today, actually substituting in her religious life. But my daughter was flying out to Israel. And so it's like, for me, it's very personal. It would have been personal if it wasn't. What I'm trying to tell you is when our Jewish homeland is attacked as it was yesterday, it makes a Jew anywhere feel vulnerable. I think one of the things which has been one of the great accomplishments and achievements of Israel is how it strengthened every Jew around the world. It gave us a sense of confidence and comfort and security, knowing that we're not just random people going from place to place without a homeland and without a way of defending ourselves, but we are a place that can defend ourselves. And yesterday, we just kind of got a little gut punch. I believe that it's going to take the better part of the next 12 to 24 hours to finally kind of create a safe place in Israel again. But I do think that this is going to be a war that we're going to see going on for probably another month. Because I have a feeling that we're not, this will hurt too hard for us not to kind of just lick our wounds and kind of go back to the way things were. Yes, Dave?
I just heard on radio as I came in here that a number of the people that were killed, Israelis that were killed, were dual citizen Americans, and that some of the hostages also, when they're talking about sending U.S. Delta Force sent to Israel.
That's good, but the fact of the matter is that, there's so many dual citizens, because Israel and America kind of almost were partners in so many ways, and the Jewish community even more so. So, let's not, but I don't want to go to, I just wanted to start there. I don't want to spend too much time talking about what happened yesterday, because we have another purpose of discussing Israel. I guess it's possible that in your presentation there may be one or two things that didn't come out of Israel. Maybe, I'm not saying it's going to, but otherwise, I imagine there's going to be a fair amount of stuff that is Israel related here. And I felt how can we talk about Israel in an academic way without first on this day talking about Israel in an emotional way? And I felt we needed to go start there. And now that we have kind of started there, we can kind of shift gears to the degree that Dr. Gittlen is ready to, wants to, and then move on in a different direction.
One quick question.
Yes.
Will we be held responsible?
Who knows? Another time. Certainly not now. Who knows? In the meantime, to my left is Dr. Barry Gittlen, most famous for being my daughter's teacher at Tufts University, and anything that happened, anything that he's accomplished over the course of his career is only secondary to the fact that he had a student named Stella in his class. His accomplishments are great. He was, again, I don't even have a CV in front of me, but I do know the extent of his accomplishments. He was the director of the Jewish Studies program at Towson, which was a huge program. Towson had, because it combined the Baltimore Hebrew College, and became this enormous Jewish Studies program. And the library at Towson is unbelievable in terms of what the volumes and volumes of Jewish books it has in the Towson Library. And Dr. Gittlen is in great measure responsible for that. His teaching at Towson and other places has been over decades. His study and work in this subject of archaeology, which I think you probably at this point know how much I love this. I didn't think this is going to be a joy for me just to sit here and watch this. Has been for over 50, for almost 60 years now. And so he just retired this past year. And so, as they say, that in retirement, he just is looking for gigs. No, I'm just joking. I reached out to him. I said, you're tired now. Maybe you got a little extra time on your hands and you want to come down and teach us a little bit here at the Shalom. And so we are so grateful for your presence here. And cannot wait to learn from you. And this is the smartest people of Temple Beth Shalom right here. And we're so glad to have you. So Dr. Gittlen, the clicker is yours.
Take up the clicker.
That's right.
Thank you. And thank you all for being here. First, by way of a little personal information, Stella Goldstein was not just my student, she was a good student.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that.
Sadly, as I retired, my son-in-law said to me, and has said to me over the past year, you're never going to retire. You're always going to be teaching, so don't tell me you're retired. And I'm still working on publications. I've been digging in Israel since the 6th day of war. I was supposed to go to Israel as a volunteer on a site called Gezer in June of '67. We all know what happened then. I got a telegram saying, stay home when I go. So I went back to my home in Detroit. I was at graduate student at the University of Pennsylvania. Went back to Detroit to spend time with my parents and my girlfriend, who was now my wife. And then a couple of weeks later, we get a telegram, war is over, we're going. So off to Israel I was about a week after the 6th Day War. And I spent a month and a half there. That was the beginning of my archaeological in the dirt study. And by the way, for those of you who haven't been in the dirt and never done the archaeology, I brought along a handle from a storage jar from Jerusalem. This storage jar is probably off the table about this tall. It's the handle, they have one on each side so you could lift it. Okay? So just your connection to your Jewish past is here. Pass it around. When you're digging in Israel, you're very connected to your Jewish past. Because what you have to understand is that every time you pick up an artifact dated to the Iron Age, the last person that touched that was your ancestor. Okay? The last person that touched it. If you happen to be a Roman, and you're digging in Rome, you might have been a Roman soldier. But the Iron Age, the Jewish period, that's your connection. But artifacts, as important as they are, don't tell the whole story. They tell you about life, they tell you about culture, they tell you about art, but they don't give you the history. For the history, you ordinarily turn to the Bible. But the Bible is nice and clean. It's been handled carefully. The Torah and the rabbinic texts have all been handled by scribes and clean. We archaeologists, we dig up texts. Our texts are dirty because they come out of the ground. So today we're going to take a look at some dirty words on dirty text that have been cleaned up so you can see them. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about the history that these texts relate and how they relate to the history of Israel. Basic Sunday school to begin with. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, we know nothing about them outside of biblical literature. And the commentaries of various rabbis through the ages have made about them. But basically, we know very little about it, if anything. Moses, ditto. Joshua, ditto. The judges, ditto. But when we get to the period of kings, we begin to get some information from the outside world. The outside world consists of Mesopotamia, that is the area of Babylon, Babylonia, the Tigris-Euphrates River. What is that area today called? Iraq. Okay? And Assyria, not to be related to Syria. Syria is modern country here. Assyria is an ancient country here. So, what's Syria today? Iraq. Also, because all of this basically is Iraq. Okay, Mitanni we're not going to go into. The Hittites, anybody ever heard of the Hittites? What famous movie did the Hittites show up in? Modern movie. 1980s.
Ten Commandments.
No, they never show up in the Ten Commandments. Ghostbusters. Go figure. Hittites, they wipe out a Hittite goddess, whose name I won't tell you because there's phony gods. No such thing. The Hittites were a very, very powerful nation that nobody in modern world actually mentions, knows anything about, but really, really important because they held off the Egyptians. Okay? And the Egyptians in this period had their hegemony, their sphere of influence, all the way up covering what is today Israel. And one of the interesting things that students don't realize until they take a course with me is that we think of Israel as this gigantic place, really, really important, gigantic, huge country. It's a little pipsqueak nothing in the middle of these gigantic empires. Look at them. It's a little tiny pipsqueak country. Surrounded on the south by Egypt, on the east by desert, and in the north by the Hittites, the Assyrians, and Babylonians. And over here, by the way, various Aramean peoples. You've heard of Damascus, around Damascus. And other guys over here, like the Edomites down here, the Moabites over here, and all these other Ites and tiny countries that you hear about when you read the Bible. So Israel is here. And it is recipient of trade movement, which does not cross the desert to get to Egypt, but crosses down through this valley system down into Israel. And the Egyptians, the other way around. The Egyptians don't want Israel. No important minerals in antiquity, except a little bit of bronze, of copper, which they can get elsewhere. No gold, no silver, no ivory, nothing there. What they want is up here. And what the Assyrians and Babylonians want is not Israel. They don't care about another god. These are polytheists. What's another god to them? Their god is better than this god? No. They want Egypt. So there is constant struggle with peoples going back and forth through the territory of Israel. Not just in the Iron Age, not just in the Israelite period, but in the Middle Bronze Age. 1,000 years earlier, 2,000 years earlier, we have conflict here. You all know the name Megiddo, right? How many people have heard of Megiddo? Everybody here of Armageddon? Armageddon is Ha-Megiddo. Greek, Har-Megiddo, Armageddon, from Mount Megiddo, Armageddon. Okay, so that guards a very famous, important pass right about here on this map. And the first mention we have of it is from a Middle Bronze Age text talking about a battle that took place there. So again, there's that, and here, Megiddo is here. See this pass coming down here. operated here in antiquity? Anybody know what people were there on the coast? On Ashdod, Ashkelon, Gaza?
You had to.
Philistines, right. Okay. And who's up here? Uh-oh, you all failed. Israel. Okay? Israel was a mountain country. This was the ancient kingdom of northern Israel. This is the ancient kingdom of Judah. Judea, together they were ancient Israel. Okay, so we're going to look at texts that were many of them found in this area, some of them found in Egypt, some of them found in Mesopotamia, all of which have something to do with the history of Israel from the time of kings, Saul, David, Solomon, down to the destruction in 586 BC and the last king of Judah, Zedekiah. Okay? And in between we'll hit some other kings, and there's not going to be an exam if you don't write them down. It's okay. A little introduction to them. So the first inscription we have is something called the Merneptah inscription. Anybody know who Merneptah was? Son and successor of Ramses II. Okay? So Ramses II, everybody knows, but Merneptah is much more important for us. Why? Because this 3-meter-high stone monument called the Merneptah inscription dates around 1200 BC, discovered by the great William Flinders Petrie in 1896, and it describes a series of battles that Merneptah undertook. First, he has a battle against the Libyans, the ancient Libyans, the ancient Egyptians. They never got along, just like today. Then he goes south against the Nubians, Sudan. They never got along either. But he defeats the Libyans, then defeats the Nubians. Then he has a little battle, I don't have a map here, but a little battle against some invaders, sea people coming down into the Nile Delta from the Mediterranean. He defeats them. Then he turns eastward, and he goes up into what today would be Gaza in that area, and a little further north up the coastal plain of Israel, turns east into the mountains, and hits an area which he calls Israel. And he says, Israel is destroyed, its seed is no more. Right here. Israel is right here in the hieroglyph. For those of you who know hieroglyphs, you read it easily, but I pointed out to you now. Okay? This is our first mention in any written text of the word Israel. And we know exactly where that is by following the route that his army took in this inscription. And the route puts him in the mountains of northern Israel, south of the Carmel and let's say the south of the Jezreel Valley. Okay? And no city name, just the terminative, a little syllable here for people. He finds a people called Israel, whom he destroys. Now, we know that there is an Israel, right? There is something called Israel. The scribes of 1200 BCE know that there's an entity called Israel, and they know where it is. Was it destroyed? Who knows? The Egyptians like to glorify everything they do, just like everybody else, even today. Another way of reading this, is its reign was burned up. Because if you know the book of Ruth, how many of you have read Ruth recently or heard about it? Okay, so the book of Ruth, what is Boaz keeping Ruth up with? Seed, which is the same word, seed. Okay? So, and if you read through the book, she gets all the seed all the time, all the seed all the time, and then she gives birth. So what could be destroyed here is the people or the grain. The grain stocks. We don't know. What we do know is Israel is there. Okay? Forgot to add this one. This is where Israel is somewhere up in here. At about the same time, about 100 years later, we have opposite Tel Aviv in the mountains of Israel, a tiny little site named Isbit. And someone in Isbit was writing a text. It's in Hebrew. Can you read it? That is Hebrew. That is 12th, 11th century Hebrew handwriting. On a parchment that's about this big. Okay? Now, archaeologists who discovered this had a problem. They couldn't figure out which way it's set. Is it set like it's here, this being the top and this the bottom, or is this the top and that's the bottom? And they argued for a couple of years, and then they came to an agreement that this is the way it should be read. Now, without knowing anything about Hebrew, can you figure out why they have it this way? By the way, when it came out, it broke. But it's there.
Excuse me, did you say this was on parchment?
No, this pottery, piece of pottery.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay, just like the blue handle here, it's a piece of pottery, just like this. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
So why that way and not the other way?
Because thoughts get bigger and bigger.
Either way it would work, but it is not. You see the ridges here? It originally stood up on its end. If you've ever made pottery, it originally stood up and stuff more on its end. But it was used, when broken originally to just one piece, as a receptacle for writing. And we call that an ostracon, O-S-T-R-A-C-O-N, okay? Which comes from Greek.
Scrap paper. It's like
Scrap paper, right. We find a lot of these bits of scrap paper that take lots and lots and lots. Here's some more. So, anybody figured out which is the most important line? It's the bottom line. The bottom line is the alphabet. Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet. So all the way to the top. What's weird about this? It's left to right. Ancient Hebrew was written left to right, right to left, top to bottom, and bottom to top. It didn't solidify right to left until basically the end of the 10th, beginning of the 9th century. Phoenician was the same way. And the Phoenicians were out traveling around the Mediterranean and dropping off their script with the Greeks. Which is why you have alpha, beta, gamma, epsilon, zeta, eta, kappa, musa, etc. Because they took it over from the Phoenicians to use for their language. And ancient Greek, like Phoenician, like the Hebrew, was written left to right and right to left, as the ox vowels, until it stabilized left to right. Anyhow, this very interesting text tells you nothing. Okay? Why does it tell you nothing? This is the alphabet, and here is a copyist, just copying out letters. It's just random letters. And if you look, see the 5 examples of the same letter. Okay? But what we have now is the earliest piece of pottery, the earliest inscription with Hebrew in it.
Which is the shape?
Which is
the shape?
letter.
The letter shape.
oh, the shin.
It's the one with the second to last.
This guy.
You
And it's like, it could be like a school kid's practice
It
pad.
is. That's what everybody thinks it is. It's a practice. For a school kid, got the alphabet, and he's, or she is practice. And here's Gittlen, early 10th century, located, what is it here? Here it is. Right at the division between what was Israel and what was Phoenicia. Talmudah is a place where I spent 1982 through 1986 excavating. Very important Philistine site. It's the smartest Philistine site. Why was it the smartest Philistine site? And those of you who know the Bible know that in the period of early activity between the Israelites and the Philistines, the days of Samuel, the Philistines captured the Ark of the Covenant and they took it to the various Philistine cities. And one after the other, they destroyed. The city was invaded by plague, something else happened, and they shipped it off to another city. That happened. Shipped it off to a third city. That happened. Finally, it came to Ekron, where the Ekronites said, "This is stupid. We're going to send it back." So they sent it back to Israel. Smart. They were the smartest ones. Okay, so Gittlen, a small little Israelite town, also had in it inscription. And here is slightly later kind of script. Again, ancient Israelite script, Hebrew. The other one was scratched into a potsherd. This is inked onto a potsherd, so it looks a little different. But this is much more interesting because it says the following. You can all read in English. It sounds biblical, doesn't it? It sounds like Leviticus. What you should do, what you shouldn't do. A good scribal text about the legal, the moral and ethical segments of the community. Whether they did or not, we know, but they had these ideas, okay? They didn't take it over from the Greeks, they didn't take it over from anybody else. This is part and parcel of Israelite culture in the 10th and 9th centuries BC. Who's around in the 10th and 9th century BC? Who's the most famous character of the 10th century BC? A 5-letter word.
Melech Israel, perhaps?
Yeah, which one?
David.
Yes, David and Solomon. These are characters of the 10th century. David and Solomon. So already, in this period, if you can date David and Solomon to this period, then you know that in this period already, the traditional legal, moral, and ethical system was running. Literacy was there. And perhaps there really was a Davidic kingdom. Biggest calendar. Found in which site? Rabbi?
Tel Gezer.
Right, Gezer. Found during the excavation at the turn of the 20th century, beginning of the 20th century, by the great Scottish excavator, R.A.S. McAllister. And he was busily working away with his hundreds of workers and just throwing pottery all over the place. It's incredible. If you've watched the original Raiders of the Lost Ark, you saw how they were digging and all these guys carting and throwing. That's exactly the way it was in the 1800s and early 1900s. Incredible that they found that because he was throwing everything away. So some guy was coming along to visit Callister, and he was kicking, his duty, looked to see if he kicking anything up. And he saw a stone, he picked it up. Oh, look. Look at this. Father McAllister, how the heck did we miss that? against counterfeits. It's a piece of limestone. They have a copy of it at the University of Pennsylvania Museum, but otherwise you have to go to the East. And what it is, again, etched into stone in the 10th century, a rhyming scheme, a mnemonic device for learning the calendar and what to do when and what happens when. So again, part of the establishing in our minds that all of this, that what we think of as ancient Israel, is not a figment of biblical writers, but it actually was there in the 10th century BC, in the days of David and Solomon. It was there, part of the culture. After the death of Solomon, the kingdom went through a period of crisis, according to the Bible. It split in half. The northern half being ruled by breakaway 10 tribes. The southern half being ruled by a descendant of Solomon, of David. Part of what was said to be impetus for the breakup and impetus for the continuing of breaking up was an invasion by Egypt by a fellow by the name Shishak in the Bible. And again, he's said to have invaded and kicked in the Bible and kicked the Dickens out of the northern part of Israel and went home. But Shishak has its own inscription, Scripture Sheshon the first, which is on a pylon, okay, in the city of Bubastis in Egypt. And in this inscription, he talks about the conquest that he went in, and it can be dated to about 918, again, late in the 10th century. And he goes in, and he says, there's a whole list of cities that he wipes out. And Jerusalem too. He not only took out the north, he took out the cities in the south, and he sets up a monument at Megiddo. And lo and behold, excavators found a piece of that monument when excavating Megiddo. And how do we know it's a piece of the monument that Shishak set up? By the way, it's cut into a block which was reused as a building stone. Okay? Nothing goes to its conservation antiquity. How do we know that this is Shishak's inscription? Because it's a Shishak. The only thing that's legible on it is his name.
Dr. Gittlen, can I ask you a question? At what point do you think that the discipline of archaeology, actually caring about that stuff that came before, started to matter? Like obviously McAllister was in the 1800, 1900, but the 1700s, were they caring about finding?
1700s, it was antiquarian stuff. Oh, something from the past.
Right. I mean, we'll use this as a tie to our swimming pool, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't until maybe 130 years ago which we said this is an important discipline for caring about.
The 1800s, you had archaeologists. You had guys coming out from museums hunting for the past. But what did they do with it? They dug it up, carried it off to the British Museum or other places. The Elgin Marbles, the head of Nefertiti goes to Germany, not her head, but this great sculpture of her head goes to Germany. And in the United States, we have also great rooted treasure. How many of you have been to the Metropolitan Museum and seen the Cesnola collection of Greek and Roman antiquities. Okay? Anybody know who Luigi di Cesnola was? Luigi di Cesnola was the last appointment made by Abraham Lincoln. He was appointed our consular official to Cyprus. He arrived in Cyprus shortly thereafter, and he noted that the Italians, the British, Prussians, and various other people had consular officials, had gangs of workmen who were out searching for treasure, looting tools. So Cesnola, no dummy, he hires the best of these guys, and in the time of his tenure, he managed to loot 40,000 tools. 40,000 tools. And I forget how many sites, how many cities, towns. And he ships all this stuff back to the Metropolitan Museum, where it goes the Cesnola collection. And if you don't go quite that far, you can go to the Walters, where Walters has a glass case about so high with Cypriot stuff in it. It says, on loan for the Cesnola collection. So it tells you nothing about it, nothing about the civilization. You have a Greek vase, beautiful Greek vase that Walters has in all these places, lots of beautiful Greek vases. You look at it, it says, the so-and-so painter. Does that tell you anything? Does it tell you how it was used? Who used it? What was it used for? What were the usual things that we used with it? That's what archaeology tries to do today. What did the house look like? It's not here in the wall circles. What did the house look like? What was done in each of the rooms? Who lived where? Who slept where? When did they go to sleep? Did they read any? Was anybody literate? And on and on and on. At Rome, we dug up a number of olive oil factories. The site itself was ringed by olive oil factories. Over 200 could be seen without digging at all. But these date to around 600 BCE. Ekron apparently was the olive oil producer for a large swath of the Mediterranean. Sort of like the Pittsburgh of olive oil. And what we tried to do was figure out, well, how much was produced, who were the shippers, who received this oil, how did they get it out of the factories? That's another time we could show you all. The factories were 17 meters long and about 6 meters wide, and they're all divided into 3 parts. And we're busy trying to figure out which was, you know, the innermost part was used for the production of oil. What's the middle part used for? The outermost part had all kinds of various activities going on in it. And then there's a doorway out to the street. So they had to carry the olive oil all the way out to the door. So once they get to the door, what happens then? There's a street. Do they put them on donkeys? They put them in carts? We know what they put them in because there are hundreds and hundreds of these jars. So we know what the olive oil jars were for. And can we trace these kinds of jars at other sites across the Mediterranean? Tell us, what's the deal with all this olive? Anyhow, I got off the topic, but let's go back to Shasha.
Excuse me. So in Egypt, they typically used things over and over, like most of the existing still monuments. The stones, if you turn them over, they have an inscription to somebody else. So there's still a lot to learn from existing structures that are still, that are ancient, but they're underneath is also hieroglyphs and so forth to tell us a lot that we learn without destroying what's existing.
That's why we keep digging down. That's why we keep digging down to find out it's below.
But it's, if it's not below, it's the structures that are
Right.
removed. But if you broke them up and you took those stones that exist now and flipped them over, you find new inscription that from something that was before that.
Yeah, but we do, when we dismantle a building, we do look at all that material. Yeah. So, going a little further forward in time, in the 6th year of King Shalmaneser III, King Shalmaneser was an Assyrian king, and Shalmaneser III, in a campaign to Karkar, okay? Karkar is in what is today the border between Lebanon and Syria. It was a very important site in antiquity. And he goes to Karkar, let's put it, his southernmost extension into the area of the Phoenicians and the Arameans, almost down to Israel, is Karkar. It's a very important site for him. But a coalition of kings decides that this incursion is too much, and they try to get him out of it. And the leader of these kings, 12 kings, leadership includes Ahab, the Israelite, according to this inscription. Okay, this was discovered in 1861. It's about 2¼ meters tall. You guys know a meter is like a yard and a couple inches. So, what does this tell us? Why is this Ahab? Who is this Ahab? Listed as having an army of 2,000 chariots and 10,000 soldiers. Who is this Ahab? You biblicists know this. Who does Elijah hate with a passion? Ahab, king of Israel, killer of Nabot, to grab his vineyard, husband of the infamous, no good, rotten, who? We even made a movie. Jezebel. You know that name, Jezebel? Okay? So in the Bible, Ahab is denounced, is quoted, drawn limb from limb, rhetorically. No good, rotten guy. Nothing good about him in the Bible. But he defeated the guy who was coming down against Israel, who had Shalmaneser III succeeded in moving further south. Israel would have been a conquered state. But backed off, made Shalmaneser back off, and that was the end of that threat. First of May. Yes?
What language is that in?
Assyrian. Okay. If I could blow it, it's the wedge-shaped cuneiform writing. Anybody know about cuneiform? Okay. The wedge-shaped writing. That's what that is. In stone. At about the same time, in Dibon, which is in Moab, today in Jordan, a group of not explorers really, but American, French, British explorers, not really, I don't know quite what to call these people. They're listed among the archaeologists, but they're not really archaeologists. They're looking for stuff. And in a bar in Jerusalem, they're all talking about this. An American theologian hears about it, and he goes up into Jordan and finds this thing, and the tribes around begin to get nervous that they're going to take this precious stone that's actually sticking up from the dirt and is a talisman for local tribes. And they decided they're going to break it up and divide among the tribes from being plundered. Just before that happens, a Frenchman comes and makes a squeeze of the inscription. How many of you know what a squeeze is? Take a machete, for instance, and press it down into this thing, and then try and pick it up, and it's a reverse mold. Then you can make a mold from it. Okay, so this is the mold. This stone, once they can read it, by the way, it is in Moabite. And if you read Moabite, you can read Hebrew, same language. Moabite, Hebrew, Aramean, Phoenician, Edomite. Basically, daughter languages, I should say sister languages, about that. You read one, you read the others. But why is this so important?
Is right to left.
It is right to left. And I have to get close because I don't have all this memorized. But up at the top, it talks about how the king of Israel oppressed Moab for many days. Cush, the god, was angry and angered his land and left. Does this sound like a familiar process? How can Israel survive when God leaves? God abandons Israel. That's how Israel is oppressed. When God abandons Israel, read Judges. God abandons Israel. The judges are appointed. The Israelites cry out for relief. Heroes are appointed, and they defeat the enemy. And that's what this is all about. So, in the king's day, in Meshach's day, Moshe was happy getting the king back. Okay? And why is this important? Not just to show you the thinking about the importance of the state God for the safety of the country, but also because he mentions not just Ahab, as Omri, the father of Ahab, as the enemy, but also because he talks about dragging before commotion the fire hearth of his uncle. And the Hebrew says, R.L. Dove, which many now see as the fire hearth or even altar of David. Something that the Israelites set up related to David. And not only that, but he mentions Yahweh. So here we have, again, mentions of kings of Israel, together with possibly something related to King David, together with the state deity of Israel, Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh. And what's really cool is the book of Kings tells the same story. Exact same story. So here we have a situation we have the monument of Meshach and the book of Kings dovetail, same story. The Tel Dan inscription, Tel Dan, up in the north, this is in, we're talking about the 9th century still, up in the north, anybody ever been to Tel Dan? It's a really neat place. It's where the river Don comes out foot of it, and you know, there are 3 rivers that feed the Jordan, the Don, the Banias, and the Chasman. And these 3 rivers come together through the finger of Israel goes north, and they drain together into the Sea of Galilee, from the Sea of Galilee. But we've been to the Banias?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Its body is all And Eldon is meaningful because that was under the auspices, I think, of Hebrew Union College and Nelson Gluck,
Right.
which reformed.
And I had a connection with Nelson Glick. No, quite a connection with Nelson Glick. I was at the founding of the Hebrew Union College's institution in Jerusalem. I was at the dedication of it in summer 1963. Because I was spending a junior year abroad in Israel. And one of the speakers happened to be my rabbi at the time, who I thought did not do a great speech. But anyhow, and then in 1969, when I was spending a year in Israel doing research, I had 2 grants, one from the Auburn Institute of Archaeological Research, and the other from Hebrew Union College. And Nelson Glick and I got to know each other. But anyhow, so at Tel Dan, just by chance, the archaeologists were cleaning up at the end of the dig and taking measurements. They put the range rod, which is a measuring stick, which I won't go into, down on the ground, and the one holding it saw something on the ground, on the stone, that didn't look right. She bent down, and it was this. Now this is a piece of limestone, basalt. It's about this big, and it's about this thick, and it's really, really heavy. Basalt is volcanic rock. And
So, second line, the last 3 letters are dated.
that's correct. Give that man a name.
It's famous, he's not reading it.
What's the rest of it say?
Well,
David's the easy part.
I think it looks like it's Ben Israel. Ben something. Before David,
So here you have David.
yeah,
What's this?
great house.
Yeah, big. Good. So it's Beit David. This is Chaf from Mela, Beit David. This is Mela.
Oh, yes.
What?
And
Israel. So you have mentioned the king of Israel and the king of the house of David, Judah. Unfortunately, we don't know names. So it's broken. Okay, we know that it's an Aramean inscription from style language and kind of pieces of names up here which are not of Israel, but we can date it again to around 840 BCE. And it's really important, again, it talks about the wars between the Arameans and the Israelites, but this is the first mention of Beit David, the house of David. Not David himself, but his dynasty. So there it is. I was in Israel shortly after the description of this, and I was meeting with a friend of mine who at that time was running the institute in the Hebrew Union College, and he takes me to his office, and he's very going to the box, and I went over to the box, he picked some up, I picked the stone up, I flipped it over, oh God, that's it. Because I had just read about the discovery of this thing, so that's how I know exactly how big it is and its head.
I have a question.
Yes,
Was this big, heavy thing, what was part of and what was?
it was part of a major inscription,
Uh-huh.
which must have been, again, really tall.
And it just served as like a bulletin board for people to like know their history? What was the
No,
purpose?
well, that's what we don't know. We don't know what this, it was not for people to learn their history, it's for the king to glorify himself.
I heard that there were billboards, like at the either on the road or at the towns, at the entrance to the town, like their glorifying billboard, which was like, read this first before you come into the city. Is that, have I misremembered?
I wouldn't go that far. I would say that, read this and weep, because this is what we did to your city. Okay? That's what do we do? It's, for instance, the inscription of Shishak said to Megiddo, who on earth Megiddo could read Egyptian? Nobody. It's a glorification of the king. But the people in Don certainly read this. Then you have Shamlis III again. Once the Omride dynasty, Omri, father of Ahab, once they were overthrown, Elijah was very happy, but once they were overthrown by Jehu, who was, we would call him a right-wing religious fanatic, but he overthrew the dynasty of the Omrides, and everybody was killed off. Whereas Omri and Ahab stood up to Shamlis III. What did Jehu do? He went up to Syria, and he bowed down before the feet of this right here. Bowed down, which is this. He bowed down at the feet of Shamlis III and gave him tribute. Please. Gold, silver, pewter. Which again is in both cases. So you have this juxtaposition of foreign element that's being talked about in the Bible actually saying what the Bible says happened. And here's something that the Bible doesn't talk about very much, but it's really important. Every now and then you get a reference in the literature to Asherah. Asherah is the goddess of fertility and fructification. And not a goddess of sex, but really a goddess of nurture. And every now and then, she's mentioned in biblical literature. And weird things about her mentioned because she's not destroyed. Again, going back to Elijah, Elijah has this great confrontation with the prophets of Baal on Mount Carmel. And the prophets of Baal, I think it was 400 prophets of Baal, 400 prophets of Baal, and tried to light fire on an altar, and they failed. But witnessing all this are 400 prophets of Asherah. We're also there. The prophets of Baal are killed, but the prophets of Asherah, why not? Why were they?
So this leads to the question of whether God had a wife.
Or at least a girlfriend. Okay? At least a girlfriend. So at Gittlen, which is down deep in the Negev, close to the Egyptian border, was on a caravan route leading from Arabia to Gaza. On a storage jar, we found lots and lots of pictures and inscriptions on various broken storage jar, but this is the one that's very interesting. It shows 3 individuals, and above them and through the hats are written something. First of all, who are these characters? And why are they polka dotted? So this one was pretty easy to figure out. It's a woman playing a harp seated on a chair. Clearly a woman. Why? Why is it clearly a woman? Hair? Is that all? Look carefully. It's got breasts, right? It's in these breasts. Okay? Clearly a woman. So then we turn our sights to these 2 characters. Are they men or women?
That's
Men? Why? That's right.
their mustaches.
What about this? No, look at here. For the polka dots.
Measles.
Measles. Smallpox. Leprosy. None of the above. I will venture to your proposition that they are leopard skins. If you look at Egyptian art, okay, priests and deities and other people wear leopard skins. And if they're leopard skins, then this is the tail of the leopard skin. And then this is a male, and this is a female, wearing different hats. Okay? And if that's the case, maybe this is Yahweh and this is Shirah, walking arm in arm. For this is an inscription that blesses somebody, blessing, so-so, by Yahweh Shalom V'Ashrah, God of Samaria, or God who guards and protects, and his Asherah, his throne. All kinds of debate, furious among scholars. Is this mean God's girlfriend? Is this really blah, blah, blah? The inscription may have nothing to do with the pictures because it goes to the hat.
So what is it with a woman in light, like a chest piece in the head? No, the other.
Oh, that's
a liar. Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, immediately that drew me to the horse.
that could be she's just got little jewelry up there. Something. She's the unambiguous one, like her, and she's got the up front too. So I leave you with that. What's important about it is the mention of Yahweh and Hashem. First of all, the mention of Yahweh on a potsherd, piece of pottery outside of Jerusalem, but still in Israelite territory. Okay? So, A, you can write the word of God's name, and by the way, we have lots and lots of inscriptions that say, may you be blessed by your Yahweh. So clearly you could write it in antiquity. Just saying. Look further on in time. We know about King Hezekiah. According to the Book of Kings, Hezekiah was one of the good kings. There are 3 good kings of Israel according to the Book of Kings. Asa, Hezekiah, and Josiah. They reformed the religion. They do good things for the religion. The rest are all rotten. Even David's not so terrific. Remember what he does. What's David do? Murders?
You
And
serve
it's adultery. And you know, we'll go into it. Okay? But in part of his defense on the city of Jerusalem against the Assyrian invasion in 701, according to the Book of Kings, Hezekiah built a tunnel. And lo and behold, beginning in the 19th century, and even earlier, explorers found all underneath Jerusalem hundreds and hundreds of yards, of meters of tunnels. And in one of these tunnels, in 1880, an inscription was tacked into it, which talked about the building of the tunnel and how the building was done. And that you finally met in the middle, and the water ran through it, and all was well, great, that's how. But it doesn't tell you who dug it and when. So it's always called the Hezekiah's tunnel inscription, or Siloam tunnel inscription.
You can walk through that tunnel.
You can walk through it, right? And if you've walked through it, you'll notice that the roof goes up and down and up and down and up and down. Do you ever wonder why the roof goes up and down and up and down? This is cut through solid stone.
It's just a torture meeting.
It wasn't the roof that was going up and down and up and down. It was the whole place that was being excavated. Okay? And when they finally got through, they had to make sure the water would run into the sea and not away from the sea. So they leveled out the floor. And that's why the roof goes up. They followed with the roof, but they got that.
At the end of the tunnel, the only way you can leave is through a gift store.
Not anymore, Paul. Not anymore.
There was a time when you could go through the tunnel because back in the think it was the 70s or 80s, a group of Girl Scouts was trapped in there. It was a freak flood. And they shut it off so they opened it up again. But anyhow, so it just goes to show you, again, did Hezekiah build the tunnel? Yeah. Is this the tunnel? May well be. Can't prove it for sure. Yeah. Where would you go to find this today, by the way?
Istanbul.
You're not supposed to talk. Yeah. Great. A lot of the great finds discovered in Israel in the 1800s, 1900s, well, actually before 1917, all the stuff went to Istanbul because Ottoman Empire was in charge of this. Afterwards, after 1917, it went to the British Museum.
It's such a racket how these museums can continue to hang on to these things.
Yep.
And the British Museum is particularly
Oh,
guilty.
They're
All of
nasty
their
guys.
treasures that they have, so many different cultures and civilizations, which is so obviously, out of, not in the right location. It needs to go back to these places, but they won't, but they're so arrogant to think,
Not
that,
just
it
that.
needs to stay here because we're the British.
It's the Germans too.
The Germans too.
And try Getty Museum, for instance. Getty Museum, and that, they're not giving up anything.
But there are some benefits to the London Museum. For example, they have a place called the Lachish Room. It's all about the Lachish.
That's a good
second
museum.
city of Israel. And it was destroyed by the Assyrians. But all these remnants were found their way into the British Museum. And if you go to London, go to the Lachish Room.
Among other things. Yeah.
And that should be brought to the Israel Museum, but whatever.
Israel Museum has a copy.
It'd be an honor for me to get that.
In the 1850s, a British explorer, archaeologist, excavated Nineveh. In those days, excavating a city was find a wall top, dig around tops of the walls, then dig down the sides of the walls. And that's how they came upon the palace of Shalmaneser, I think which one. They found this great relief that encircled the entire room, and that relief is called the Lachish relief because it tells the story of the Battle of Lachish that is recounted in part in the Bible, and it's an amazing thing. It's twice my height. I mean, it's gigantic, and there is a copy of a large part of it on the wall of the Israel Museum today. So it's well worth looking at. So now I'm going to get a little more personal, talk about people. Does Hezekiah really exist? Well, King Hezekiah, like everybody else in those days, sealed his documents with his personal seal. So he took a papyrus and wrote or scribes, because the kings couldn't write. The scribe wrote the document and didn't roll it up. That's wrong. They took and they folded it. Okay. Then they put a string around it. They put a blob of clay on it. Then they pressed their signet into the blob of clay. And the thing dries. That little blob, when it's been pressed, is called bulla, B-U-L-L-A. And then it's sent to the recipient by messenger. Recipient knows that nobody's looking at it because that blob of clay is still in place. Flips off the blob of clay, throws it in the corner, and reads the manuscript, the description. Today, archaeologists will find heaps of these bulla, plural, B-U-L-L-A, heaps of these bulla in corners of rooms or there, and know that there was writing going on. But the writing on this wonderful, new, easily transportable material is gone. Papyrus decays, was burned up, and it's gone. The only reason we know they were doing it, the bulla are hardened by the fire, and they survive.
It's like a stamp.
here you have, by the way, to give you an idea how big this is, that's the size of the men too. Oops, it's 13 to 12 millimeters. Okay, so it's 1.3 centimeters. 2.5 centimeters is an inch. This is less than half of an inch around. They're tiny. And you can read, oh, by the way, you notice some interesting symbol here. What's this doing in Israelite seal? It's the Ankh of ancient Egypt. Because at this point in time, the Egyptians were the good buddies of the Israelites, of the Judeans.
What's it mean? What's this name?
And this thing, this winged bird of some sort,
No, it's
or sun disk with arrows in it, also Egyptian.
sealed.
Okay. So now, you also have to notice that the signet that made this impression was copied in reverse. So the artist who makes these signets has to be able to not only just know the language, know art, but to do it in reverse so that it's stamped in becomes no problem. So this Yahoo, no, another thing that we have that's very interesting, amulets. This couple of silver amulets. Remember the silver foil they used to back stick gum? Okay, those of you who are older. Okay? And you could take the kind of glossier stuff off silver foil, but the silver foil was so thin it could evaporate in your fingers almost. Well, that's how thin these silver foil things are. They're really impossible thin. But several of them were found rolled up around what? A catgut or a piece of string. It was tied around the necks of people buried in the Ketef tombs. Ketef shoulder of the Hinnom Valley. Anybody ever been in the Cinetech Theater in Jerusalem? Oh man, it should be. Okay. It sits on the Ketef as does the Scottish Church a little further south. Has anybody been in Liberty Bell Park? No. Okay. So, okay, that's Ketef. Anyhow, the Scottish Church wanted to build a kind of auxiliary building, got permission from the government to do it, and the first day a tractor comes to clear the land, it falls into the tomb. Okay? Done with that. Building was never built, archaeologists called in and they covered this burial ground. And among the buried were two amulets, a shorter one, a longer one was the long one. Today, they're in the Israel Museum encased in plexiglass. And what is very interesting about them is, we can read this.
Yes, they are the blessings.
Which blessing?
That blesses the newborn baby or a couple being married and so on.
Almost. Which blessing is this?
God.
The priestly blessing. Priestly blessing from the book of Numbers, I think it's where it shows up. Okay? And this, again, here you have something that's in the Bible, definitely, and now we know that this wasn't something created in the Greek period or the Roman period, and the Bible being a late compilation. It might be overall late pulling together of these parts, but the stuff that's written is ancient. This blessing was actually used. And by the way, it took years for them to unroll this thing and be able to read it. So we also have a variety of Oscar-God pottery. There's a whole group of them in a place called Mitzat Yahoo, which is Yavne Yam along the coast. And it's a letter of a complaint from a tenant against this guy, who apparently had taken this farmer's permit and not returned it, and it's a complaint to the authority, somewhere unnamed authority, about this is unjust, it's against the law, and we don't know what happened to them. But, and then we have this great dedicatory inscription found at Ekron in 1996. It was found on the next to the last day of the last week of 14 years of excavation. Okay? It was found quite by accident when we were tracing the wall of what we thought was the palace of the king of Ekron, this massive, huge building, and we were looking for the back wall, found the back wall, tracing along the back wall, and the guy comes running over to me, and I'm digging half the toe away, and he said, "Gary, you gotta come see this. Gotta come see this." Well, this is important, this is the end. No, you get out of your home and you come down to see this. So I get out of my home, and I meet my assistant in charge, and I go off to see this thing. And what we saw was this. Not as clean as this, it had fallen upside down backwards in the dirt, covered with dirt, and you could make out on the corner and a letter. That was about it. It turns out that this inscription is the dedicatory inscription, not to a palace, but to a temple. It's the inside innermost wall of the temple. And it says, temple which, who built it? Akish, son of Padi, son of Assad, son of Anna, son of Yair, ruler of Ekron, forget God and his lady, may she bless him and protect him and prolong his days and bless his life. Doesn't sound biblical. Protect him from his days, peace in the land. And so, what does this tell us? A, that we are digging in Ekron. We tried to prove it for 14 years. No one believed it was really Ekron. Ta, Ekron. Not only that, but we have the king list. And the king list matches the biblical king list for Ekron, which mentions Padi very prominently, and also Akish very prominently. So now we know exactly where, but what's interesting to this, Pagaya, unknown goddess, never mentioned in any text in Israel, but possibly a local manifestation of the Greek earth goddess God. But at least certain for sure. But so we have a Philistine temple, a humongous Philistine temple, with a dedicatory inscription, which tells us the name of the city and the name of the rulers, and you don't always get that in an excavation. In the city of Iran, just south of Beersheba, there was a military garrison at the end in the early 6th century, in the 580s. There's a military garrison, and in that garrison, there was a trove of inscriptions detailing materials given as rations, lists of rations themselves, lists of how many troops and where the troops were going, etc. So we know this is the days of the invasion of the Babylonian army in 590 through 586 BCE. And Arad was one of the southern border forts of the kingdom of Judah. And Lachish, that we just mentioned, has two famous periods of biblical legend. Once in 701 and again in 586. In 586, Lachish is on the western front of the incursion by Babylonians against Judah, and we have 23 inscriptions on ink from Lachish, discovered in 1935, and they talk about relations between the fortress at Lachish and outlying fortresses. And the most important of that is Lachish fort. May, again, God's name again, no problem with writing out God's name. May cause the Lord to hear this very day tidings of good. And now, according to everything which the Lord has said, this has your servant done. I wrote on a sheet according to everything which you sent me. Inasmuch the Lord had said to me concerning the matter of Beit Harapi, there's no one there. And as for Shmaryahu took him and brought him up to the city, possibly Jerusalem. And your servant is not sending him there anymore, but when morning comes around, and may the Lord be apprised that we are watching for the fire signals of Lachish, according to all the signs which my Lord is doing, because we cannot see Azekah. Now, know Israel, know that going north in Lachish, a series of cities, forts, and towers. And Azekah is one of the northernmost. They can't see it anymore. They can't see signified of Azekah, meaning it's thinking about Babylonians. From Jerusalem, this bullet, again, very tiny, less than a half centimeter, Sarhir, mayor of the city. Sarhir. And what can you make out that there are two guys here? There's one, there's the other, and they're walking like Egyptians. Or they're shaking hands. Or they're high five. What it means, no one knows. And this, Bola of Baruch ben Neriah is scribe. Baruch ben Neriah? How many guys named Baruch ben Neriah lived in Jerusalem? Baruch the scribe of Jeremiah. And, unfortunately, this is a forgery.
It is?
Yeah. Yep. It was discovered in the black market and with pretty dealers. Another one was found in 1996. Exact same thing with forgeries.
How do you know? How do you know?
I wouldn't know. The guys that know this stuff have heard of forgeries. For many years, I thought this was a spectacular find until I found out it was forgery. But it would be neat. But this was not a forgery, it was found in excavation. Bull of a guy named Gittlen, son of Pashur, who's mentioned in Jeremiah 38:1 as an important high up, upstanding elite member of society. So we have these inscriptions of places and things. We have these inscriptions of people. And in the end, it gives us a picture of Israelite society that the physical remains of buildings and gold and silver objects, ivory objects, which there are, they can't tell us the whole picture. They can't tell us. We need inscriptional evidence. The Bible is one thing, but we cannot exactly say that the Bible is always giving an accurate picture, but it truly does, because every now and then we find in the soil an inscription which matches perfectly biblical literature. It gives us a fuller picture of the culture, the society going on at the time. So we never know what's going to be in the next shovel of dirt. But hopefully, be something really, really, really neat, and you'll be there to dig it up. And I'll take whatever questions anybody may have.
Have there been any inscriptions found that have actually been determined to contradict something in the Bible?
No. Not that I know of.
You find the bullseye, but has anyone found a signet? And what is?
Yes, signets have been found.
And what, are they stamps, are they rings?
They're, yeah, some are rings, some are like pyramidal, like trapezoidal.
Okay.
There's a very famous story about a signet that was used in the Bible. You know a famous biblical story about a signet? Really, it's one of the racier stories in biblical literature. You should all know this. Go ahead.
Judah Tamar.
Yeah, what happened? Give a story.
In short,
Yeah,
Judah's had 3 sons, 2 of them, one married a woman, Tamar, she died, second married her, part of the Levirate marriage, she died, third one married, no, excuse me, so she wanted to marry the third one as part of the Levirate marriage, but Judah didn't want to do it, he thought she was meant she would be killed. So what happens, so she plays the harlot by the side of the road, she actually manages to seduce
yeah.
Judah.
I'll say, you have sex with me?
Yeah.
Give me this, and this.
And he didn't have money, she was planning to prosecute him money, but he left his signet ring as collateral.
And his staff.
And his staff, which like his ID and credit cards he left with her. But then she disappeared, and when it was showing with the pregnancy, everyone was like, who's this terrible woman who did such, what did she do, such a dishonor to the name of Judah?
Judah said that.
Right, and she said, the person whose baby this is the one whose staff and signet ring this is.
Yeah.
And there's the story of the signet.
Very important. Signet. Watch who you give your signet to.
Right. Don't leave your credit cards and ID lying around.
Right. Bible's full of great stories. Problem is, everybody talks about the Bible, but nobody reads it.
So another question, going back to the farmer complaint, do people know, was the farmer who wrote it, did he go to a scribe?
Probably a scribe.
Yeah.
A scribe. Because the hand is very good. The
Okay.
writing is very, very careful, very good. And you can tell a scribble and a good hand.
And ours, I think it's probably hard to find complete names, would scribes sign?
No, no, and nothing, nobody in antiquity, they didn't sign their names, things.
My impression is that the scribes were the intellectuals of the day.
Whether or not they were intellectuals, I can say, but they were the ones that knew what was what, because everybody was coming to them to have things written. And, in the book of Proverbs, you have a statement, these are the Proverbs of men of Solomon, these are the Proverbs of the men of Hezekiah. So, in other words, these are things that the scribes have found and were bringing them together.
So kings actually were relatively illiterate, and they needed the scribes to read messages to them.
Probably, just like all the rest of the world. And they think that the kings, I won't comment on people in government today, but some were not the wisest people. Okay, so, yeah, you have professional scribes. They were the people that went when Babylonians, before that the Assyrians conquered a country, they moved people around to various parts. They told them to move them around. It's 10 miles structure, right? And what they did was, they moved the elites, they moved the governing families, they moved the military experts, they moved the scribes. So they couldn't. And then put them into other other people who put, so everybody was all mixed up. But what they did do, they never removed all the Israelites from the northern kingdom. They tell us that. They never removed everybody from Judah. There were always people in the land who were Christian. Always.
I know it's 11:30 right now, so there's some people, one already left to go get their kid. So we'll understand if there are people here who need to go pick somebody up. And I also know that Dr. Gittlen has got, a life to live on his own and not just to be here with us. But I am so grateful for this presentation. I can tell you personally, if you saw me taking pictures, it's because these are the various different, things that I like, fascinating and never heard of before, and can't wait to go deeper and study them even further, because this is also rich with value, and it's incredible to learn it from a person who truly knows this discipline, and we're so grateful to you for being here and giving this presentation to us.
Thank you all.
So we have more opportunities. One of Dr. Gittlen's colleagues will be here in a month or so, Susanna Garfunkel. She'll be teaching the class as well, and trying to get some real scholars in here. The 7-11 scholars that I am. Thank you all for being here. We're so glad to be able to